Hello everyone. I'm going to introduce you today to a very useful tool called the decision tree. This is a decision support tool that uses a tree-like graph to illustrate the various decisions as well as the resulting outcomes. These are excellent tools to help you solve between the various decisions, especially when the problems are very complex. There are different nodes that we're going to be using in the construction of a decision tree. The first being a decision node, and this is represented by a square. This node implies that the decision maker is in complete control of the situation, and no matter what course of action he's decided upon will occur with certainty. The next node is an event node, and this is represented by a circle. An event node implies that there is a presence of uncertainty about the possible outcomes, and this is not controllable. Then we use branches to connect the various nodes. Next, I'm going to be taking you through the various steps in designing a decision tree. The first step is to identify the different courses of action, and these are the different decisions or choices that we've got to make. Thereafter, we've got to identify the outcomes or the events, and these are the results of the decisions. Once we're done with that, then we need to decide on the chronological order, and this is where you would put the various decisions as well as outcomes in sequence. Thereafter, we're ready to draw our tree, and this is done from left to right, and also known as the forward pass. Thereafter, we would allocate probabilities to the outcomes, and only event nodes should have probabilities attached to them. Once we're done with allocating probabilities, we're then ready to calculate the conditional profits. These are the expected payoffs that you can expect to occur from the different outcomes. Thereafter, we will calculate the expected value, and this is done from right to left, and also known as your backward pass. And finally, we are ready to choose the decision that has resulted in the highest expected value of profit. Now I will take you through some very simple examples to illustrate how you would construct a decision tree and the different nodes that you would use. Okay, the first example is to decide whether to erect a large or a small factory. So we're going to begin by drawing a square. And arising out of the square would be three choices. One, to erect a large factory or to erect a small factory, but you should also have an option not to erect a factory. And this is an implied option. Okay, the next example. You are deciding whether to launch an advertising campaign. So the decision to be made is to launch a campaign. But you should also have the option of not launching a campaign. So we will draw a square and two branches arising out of that. If the campaign is launched, then there's a 70% chance of it being successful, and this is the resulting outcome of launching the campaign. So we're going to draw a circle, and arising out of that circle will be a branch for if the campaign is successful, and that's a 70% chance. And then a 30% chance of the campaign being unsuccessful. Remember that probabilities have to add up to 1. The next example that we're looking at is Cami is considering selling her shares. So the decision to be made is whether she should sell her shares, but also not to sell her shares should also be an option. So we're going to draw a square, and arising out of that square will be a branch for selling her shares, and another branch for not to sell her shares. If she decides to sell her shares, there's an 80% chance that she will get 10,000. So this is an outcome of selling her shares. So we're going to draw a circle, and arising out of that circle will be a branch for 80% chance of getting 10,000, and there's a 20% chance of getting 8,000. Remember again that your probabilities have to add up to 1. Okay, we're now ready to move on to a more complex example. The owner has decided to extend business activities. Now, the key word here is he's decided to extend business activities, and this means that the decision to extend the business activities has been made. So that's not the decision that we want to make with this example. Okay, so he's decided to include manufacturing and selling trusses used in the construction of low-cost housing. He must now find suitable premises for the purpose of manufacturing the trusses. He's found suitable premises for sale, that is a large factory for R1,000,000, a medium factory for 750,000 rands, and a small factory for 450,000. So that is the decision that we've got to make, the choice between the size of the factory. He intends to launch an advertising campaign. Once he's decided on the size of the factory, the marketing firm quoted him 30,000, 18,000 and 10,000 respectively for the launching of a campaign, in order to decide on the demand based on the production of a large, medium or small factory. The following table summarizes the information. Okay, so we've got the three size factories, the cost of the different factories, the chance of the campaign being successful, the profit if the campaign is successful, as well as the profit if the campaign is unsuccessful. And we need to design a decision tree to determine the size of the factory. So we're going to follow these steps. The first is to identify the decision, and the decision would be the size of the factory that we've got to choose. The second is to identify the events or the outcomes or the results of the different decisions or choices. The outcome of the advertising campaign will either be successful or unsuccessful. Thereafter, we need to put all of the decisions and outcomes into chronological order, and that is the first would be the decision regarding the size, and then the event with regards to the outcome of the campaign. Thereafter, we're ready to do the forward pass, which is drawing our decision tree. Then we will allocate probabilities to all the different outcomes, the campaign being successful or unsuccessful, and we will calculate the conditional profit of these various outcomes. So our tree looks like this. We would start by drawing a square to indicate that that a decision has to be made. Thereafter, we will have three branches arising out of the square: the large, the medium, and the small. Okay, if we choose a large factory, we're going to have to draw a circle to indicate that there's an outcome of it being successful with a 90% chance and it being unsuccessful with a 10% chance. Remember that your probabilities have to add up to 1. If we choose the medium-sized factory, then we're going to have to draw a circle to indicate that there's two outcomes. There's a 75% chance of the campaign being successful and a 25% chance of the campaign being unsuccessful. If we choose the small factory, the outcome is a 50% chance of the campaign being successful and a 50% chance of the campaign being unsuccessful. Thereafter, we need to put in the conditional profits that we were given. If we choose a large factory and the campaign is successful, there was 165,000 profit. If we chose a large factory and it was unsuccessful, there was 155,000 loss. Okay, so these conditional profits have been given to us in the question. Thereafter, we're ready to calculate the expected profit, and this is done using the backward pass. Okay, so in order for us to calculate the expected value, we're going to multiply the probability by the conditional profit. So in the first case, if we choose the large factory and there's a 90% chance of the campaign being successful, we will take 90% times the 165,000, and this will give us the 148,500. If the campaign is unsuccessful, there's a 10% chance, and here we will take the 10% multiplied by the conditional loss of 155,000, and this would give us a loss of 15,500 as our expected value. Once you have completed an outcome, you must then total the total outcome, and this would give you 148,500 minus a loss of 15,500 to result in an expected value of profit of 133,000. And this is your expected value of profit if you choose the large factory. You will follow the same procedure for your medium-sized factory, where you multiply the probabilities by the conditional profits to give you your expected value. And for the medium-sized factory, you can see that if you go the medium-sized factory, the expected value of profit is 87,500. This would then be written in this outcome. And if you go the small factory route, the expected profit that you can make is 75,000 after following the same steps of multiplying the probabilities by the conditional profits. Okay, and now we're ready to make our decision. Because the large size factory will result in the highest expected value of profit of 133,000, our decision would be to choose the large factory. Okay, now for your homework. Okay, so looking at your prescribed textbook, I want you to work through the following examples. Example 12.4 on page 366 to 369. Once you've completed that example, I want you to attempt the test yourself. That's 12.2, which appears on page 369. Once you've drawn this decision tree, then check the solution that appears on page 374. And your homework would be to attempt exercises 12.7 on page 378 and 12.11, that's on page 381. Okay, thank you.